Yeah, so switch configuration is required frequently, more frequently than router configuration. Switch, as you know, switches are used to connect a computer, but they and they switch packets between devices. But there are more to switch than just uh, uh, switching packets between devices. So you can use switches to provide security in your network. Okay. So what are the initial setting of the switch? You guys have already. So it's just the review. So when switches is switch boot sequence again. The operating system is stored in the flash memory. The operating system loads, and then if you already have a configuration file that is stored in NVRAM, that is executed, and this configuration file is called startup config. Now, some of you have probably because some I think yeah, not I think Juri and Masood, they updated the iOS on a switch. So by default, switch looks for operating system in flash memory. So what you can do is temporarily you can modify the switch and change the boot environment. Okay, so this is the file name of the iOS. This is the name. So let's say if you're upgrading, if you have multiple iOS in your flash memory, if your flash memory is big enough, you can specify which iOS to boot from. Okay, so this is the file name of iOS. So if there's a problem with the hardware, if there's any kind of problem that crashes the switch, you can go to the switch recovery mode, just like your computer. When you if your computer doesn't start normally, uh, you you go to the recovery mode in Windows. You go to the BIOS, change the BIOS setting. So the same way you can boot your switch in a recovery mode, and uh, 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 this is the procedure. Okay, you have to use the console port first of all. You have to use the terminal emulation program like PuTTY, and then unplug the switch, and then there's a mode button on the switch that you have to press for 15 seconds, and then it would boot in the recovery mode. Here you can check your flash directory and to see if you have a proper iOS that matches the switch. Most probably it happens if you upgrade the iOS. And there you can also use command to either upgrade or uh, reinstall the iOS in the recovery mode. So this is, you can just read on your own. This, what are the LED indicators of the switch? There are port LEDs, there are system LEDs, show if the switch has power applied or not. Amber, if the port is not sending data, it's amber, blinking amber, which is not very good. Okay, because if the port is keep blinking, there must be a problem, and that could relate to faulty cable, faulty connector, or faulty port. Faulty connector can be serious. It can even bring down the whole network. Okay. All right. So you guys already know, if you want to access your switch remotely, you have to configure a management port. What is a management port? Is a virtual port, okay, which is called SVI, and it is, so you create a VLAN port and you assign an IP address to it. So that's your management port. So you can connect. So that's going to be in the exam. So you have to configure the management port, and this is how you configure the management port. Interface VLAN 99. That's a port. VLAN 99 is a virtual port. You assign an IP address, and you also assign a default gateway so you can access your switch from a remote network. So this is going to be in the exam. All right, full duplex, half duplex communication, we already covered that. How to configure switch port at the physical layer level. So you can change, if the port is running on half duplex, you can change it to full duplex, and you can also specify the speed on the port, which you rarely do these days. So there's no reason to change the speed of the port or changing full duplex or half duplex mode, because every switch operates at full duplex mode. Auto MDIX is switch automatically detect the cable type, crossover, or not detect the cable type. It just, so even, for example, when you connect two similar devices, you have to use crossover cable. So by that logic, if you're connecting two switches, you have to use crossover cable. But with auto MDIX, even if you're using the straight through cable, it automatically turn into crossover auto MDIX. As you guys already know, in our lab, not all devices supports auto MDIX. So for that reason, you should always have a crossover cable with you, in case a device, you have to connect two similar devices for testing purposes, and they don't support auto MDIX. And to verify the auto MDIX setting, you use this command: show controllers Ethernet controller, to verify auto. So auto MDIX is on by default. If it's supported, by default is on anyway. So these are the commands that you can use to use to view your configuration, just like router, show interface, show starter config, show running config, show flash will give you show you the content of the flash. Show version gives you a lot of information. One of the very important information you can view from the show version command is the version of iOS, and also where it's booting from. So in case you're changing the boot sequence, it is important to note where your switch is booting from. You can also view your MAC address table. Okay. So you guys already know you can view the status of interface by typing show interface command, and make sure that both interface is physically up and line protocol is up. So line protocol means that your switch is connected to another device that is also receiving signals. So these are the network layer errors, access layer errors that switch might encounter. Okay, so we're not going to go into the detail of these errors because you need a lot more information, but most of these errors, input errors, runs, packets that are discarded because they're smaller than the minimum packet size, because every packet has a minimum or maximum size. So if they are smaller than the minimum size, that means there's a problem. So it called runs. And what could be the problem is always most of the time, 99% of the time, is related to physical layer, meaning again, faulty cable, broken connector, faulty ports, GNs that are packet that exceed the minimum packet size. Same issue. If you have a lot of GNs in the network, that means is the problem is with the physical layer. Every other layer, same thing. Always, if you ever have any of this problem, most likely it's related to faulty cable, faulty connectors, and port itself. So if you're troubleshooting switch, media issues, type show interface, look at the switch, if it's blinking, if there's a connection, verify proper cabling. Also verify if there are a lot of other electronic devices. And basically, most of the switch problems is related to hardware, either cable or port. It's very rare that there's a problem with the software. All right, now the important thing, switch security. This will be in the exam. So first of all, when you're configuring remote management on a switch, use SSH. You already know the importance of SSH. A switch has to be, the iOS version of the switch has to be K9 version. So if you type show version command and you don't see K9 in the name of iOS, that means it does not support SSH. So if you are on a switch, you're configuring SSH and you get unrecognized command message, that means you're using the version of iOS that does not support SSH. So what do you have to do? Depending on the size of the flash, you just upgrade the iOS with K9 version, or just buy a different switch. So you already know how to configure the SSH. So first you configure the domain name, you generate key, then you configure user authentication, you create a user account and the password, and then you enable VTY lines, which are virtual lines. Line VTY 0 to 15, transport input, and then you specify which transport method is going to be used to connect to the switch remotely. So in this case is SSH, which is secure, not telnet. And that's the whole configuration of SSH. It will be in the exam. So there's already a lab. And then you can verify your SSH configuration using PuTTY, okay? Or you can also use Windows command Windows command prompt. Okay, one of the thing that one of the security measure you can deploy in your network is by disabling unused ports. So you can use the command interface range, show run interface range. So let's say you want to disable uh, 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 port from 10 to 20. So use the command interface range, uh, specify the ports, and just type shutdown. So this way, nobody can come and attach the port, attach their device to any of the port, and gain access to the network. Now, one student, and I'm sure it was Jury, who says, "Oh, so how come? Okay, so what about they come in and they disconnect the cable from an active port and attach their device to that port to gain access to the network?" Valid, yes, valid, makes sense, of course. But the thing, then you add additional security. So let's say you have a switch with 12 ports. So well, let's just use 12 ports. So the first 6 ports are connected to the host, and the other 6 ports are unused. So you shut down port from 7 to 12, and 1 to 6 you can apply port security, meaning so you have your devices connected to port 1 to 6, and your switch, and you enable port security on a port, so only the device with that MAC address will be able to access that port. Okay, so if you connect your laptop to port 1, that your switch and then you enable port security, your switch will learn the MAC address of your laptop. So in case if somebody disconnect the port and attach their device, they will not have access to the network. The access to the network will be rejected. So this is one of the common setting in a secure network. Okay, and switchboard. So this is how you configure MAC addresses within port security. This is the command. So it's called static secure. So either you can assign a MAC address manually, statically to a port, or you can configure the port to learn the MAC address automatically, dynamically. So obviously, this method is much better. Dynamic secure MAC address. So you don't have to assign the MAC address automatically. You just attach a device, and the port will learn the MAC address dynamically. Okay. A sticky secure MAC address is the same as dynamic method. The only difference is that the MAC address will also be saved in startup configuration. And this is the command: switch port security MAC address. A sticky MAC address is used to configure switch port security on a switch.
What is the command for the dynamic a secure MAC address? So because it says how to enter the static, it says how to do the sticky, but how does it learn the MAC address dynamically? What is the command for?
Oh, for the dynamic command is switch port security Like I said, I don't remember the command because I always use the sticky command. Okay,
Okay,
so me so
do
eh?
you need to add the MAC address after sticky or just sticky
No,
and
you
that's it?
don't. Okay,
Just
yeah, I just a sticky.
just
You
a
don't
sticky.
need to add MAC address.
Thank you.
Okay, so what exactly happened if there's a violation? What if somebody actually disconnect your server from the network, right, from the switch, and attach their own laptop to that port? So there are different type of violation mode, meaning there are different type of action switch can will take once there's a violation. So the first one is called protect. So data from unknown source MAC addresses are dropped, and a security net. So just the data will be dropped. There will no access, but there will not be any notification. Okay, so switch will not send any notification. Then you have the second one, restrict. Data from unknown source MAC addresses are dropped, but also there will be a security notification is presented. So you will know that somebody try, or by mistake, who knows, by mistake, uh, uh, connected to the port that was secured with the MAC address. So the notification, you will see the notification on your switch. But anyway, the thing is, you're not always looking at your switch, so you will not know unless you are configuring a switch either after a week, after 2 weeks, or whenever, because the notification is displayed in the switch by default, which is the default mode, which should, I probably left the default mode, which is shutdown. So interface becomes error disabled and port LEDs turn off. Okay, so this is the default mode. Unless you configured protect or restrict, the default mode will be shut down. So the port will just be shut down. And then, so this is like notification. Then, oh, the user will complain that whoever is connected to that port, oh, I don't have access to the network. Okay, and then you can find out what was the port is shut down either because of this the security violence, or if there's some other reason. So by default, port security is disabled on a port. Maximum number of secure addresses per port is 1. Violation modes are shut down by default. Sticky addresses learning by default disabled. So you have to enable it. Okay. So here, this is the procedure. So that will be in the exam. So make sure you do the lab. Okay. I'm going to post the lab. And again, I will post it with the answers so it will be easier. So switch port security is the command. So first, the port that you want to configure. For example, in this case, you want to configure F018. So you go to the interface mode. Okay. You use switch port mode access, switch port security. Most common configuration. So this is how you enable port security. And this is how you enable sticky port security. So interface fast Ethernet 0 to 19, switch port mode access, switch port security. So there are 2. Switch port security maximum. So here you can actually set the maximum number of secure addresses allowed on that port. Okay. And so you can have 10 addresses, 4 addresses, 5. What usually is just one address, because you're not going to connect 10 different devices to one port. You connect one devices and this device always stays there. But you can, just in case, you can increase the maximum. Okay. And then this is the command that enable sticky learning. Switch port security MAC address is sticky. That's all. So once you configure your port security, these are the commands to verify your configuration. Show port security interface. Okay. And you see maximum MAC address is 1, port security is enabled, port status is secure and up. Last source address VLAN 005. This is dynamic and this is sticky. Okay. You can also use show running config command to see the status of port security. So when you type show running config, you will see switch port security MAC address is sticky. The show port security address command can also show you which ports are configured and with which type of and what type of security. So here, this one is configured with secure. F018 is dynamic, and F019 is sticky. So switch control displays when a port security violation occurs. So this is the message you will see if you choose the violation mode as restrict, where it sends the message, and this is the message you see here. Interface faster Ethernet 018 change state to down. And security violation occurred caused by MAC address on port fast Ethernet 0. Okay, so this is the violation mode where the port will send a message to the interface. So change. So when it's disabled check the port status and the security settings. So here show interface F018 status. Port security is enabled. Violation mode is shut down. And do not re-enable a port unless you know the reason why the port was disabled. So investigate. If it was a mistake, somebody by mistake, most probably someone from your team, IT team, unplug the port and plug another device, or somebody really tried to access your network. Okay, especially in school. So unless you investigate, don't enable the port. So once you investigate it, you can enable the port and issue the no shutdown command. Okay, so that's it about port security. And